What if the Chosen One never fell to the dark side? Because he was already in it from the beginning. Imagine a galaxy where Anakin Skywalker, destined to bring balance to the Force, wasn't trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi but instead by the Dark Lord of the Sith himself, Darth Plagueis, a master of life, death, and manipulation, and now the secret mentor to the most powerful Force user in history. This is not the Star Wars you know. This is the Sith's ultimate gamble. In this alternate timeline, Anakin Skywalker becomes something far more powerful and far more stable than Darth Vader ever could. Trained by Darth Plagueis, he walks the line between chaos and control, love and power, and redefines what it means to be the Chosen One. What do you think would happen if Anakin was raised in the shadows instead of the Jedi Temple? May the Force, or maybe the dark side, be with you. In this alternate timeline, the story takes a sharp turn the night Darth Plagueis was meant to die. Palpatine, ambitious and cunning, believed he had executed the perfect betrayal. He waited until his master was asleep, struck with lethal precision, and walked away thinking he had finally become the true Dark Lord of the Sith. But what if Plagueis anticipated this treachery? What if in his mastery over life and death he had already devised a method to cheat death? Not by transferring his essence, but by anchoring his body and spirit beyond the threshold of mortality? Instead of dying, Plagueis allows the deception to play out. He becomes a phantom in the galaxy, hiding in the shadows while Palpatine rises to political power. Plagueis knows that the Sith cannot thrive through brute force alone. Patience and knowledge are more powerful than lightning and sabers. He watches his former apprentice from afar, observing every move with a cold, calculating mind. But his attention is pulled elsewhere, toward the subtle ripples in the Force, a vergence unlike anything he's ever felt, a child conceived through the will of the Force itself. To most, Anakin Skywalker is a miracle. To Plagueis, he is destiny, a culmination of Sith efforts spanning generations. But rather than revealing himself immediately, Plagueis waits. He understands that a child shaped by fear or anger too early becomes unstable. So he engineers events, pulling strings in the dark, ensuring that Anakin falls into his hands at just the right moment. Before the Jedi, before Palpatine. When the time is right, Plagueis steps into Anakin's life, not as a Sith Lord, but as a mentor cloaked in mystery. He doesn't preach hatred, he teaches understanding, discipline, perspective. In secret, the Sith legacy is reborn. Not through domination, but through rebalance. Plagueis doesn't need to rule the galaxy, he only needs to shape the one who will. And with Anakin under his wing, the galaxy's future takes a darker, deeper breath. In this alternate reality, the Force conception of Anakin Skywalker takes on an entirely new meaning, one not born of mystery but of design. In the shadows of the galaxy, Darth Plagueis, master of the unnatural and manipulator of midichlorians, begins a grand experiment. Obsessed with unlocking the secrets of immortality, he stretches the boundaries of life and death itself, but he realizes something. Instead of creating eternal life for himself, what if he could engineer the perfect being, someone who could carry the Sith legacy forward in ways he alone could not? It begins not with lightning or war, but in silence. Plagueis, deep within his hidden laboratories, learns to bend the will of the Force. He doesn't just influence life, he creates it. With a careful manipulation of midichlorians, he brings forth a child into the galaxy, not by accident, but by intention. Anakin Skywalker is born not as a random miracle, but as a planned vessel, a being sculpted by the dark side, forged in secrecy, and born under the illusion of prophecy. To the Jedi, Anakin appears as a Force-born child, a fulfillment of ancient legend. But they do not realize they're looking at the result of Plagueis' darkest triumph. The Chosen One they revere is actually the Sith's hidden blade. Every instinct Anakin has, every surge of power within him carries the imprint of Plagueis' manipulation. He is tied to the dark side in ways no Jedi can see, because his very soul was touched by it before birth. This shift in origin changes everything. Anakin's connection to the Force isn't just strong, it's unnatural. It resists Jedi discipline and logic. It surges with passion, dreams, visions, and shadow. And deep inside something calls to him, something he cannot explain. While the Jedi try to mold him, it is Plagueis' influence, silent, patient, ever-present, that truly guides his destiny. The Force did not create the Chosen One to bring balance. Darth Plagueis did to tip it. Anakin's training under Darth Plagueis begins long before the Jedi even hear whispers of the Chosen One. Taken from Tatooine as an infant, Plagueis keeps him hidden away from the watchful eyes of both the Jedi Council and his former apprentice, Darth Sidious. In the quiet shadows of an unknown world, Anakin grows up surrounded not by strict Jedi codes or temple rituals, but by the raw, untamed teachings of the Sith, filtered through the calm, calculated mind of Plagueis. Unlike the harsh indoctrination Sidious would have forced upon him, Plagueis nurtures Anakin's natural gifts with a rare kind of patience. He doesn't suppress the boy's emotions, he encourages them. Fear, anger, love, curiosity, all are tools to understand the Force more deeply, not obstacles to be buried. Anakin learns not just to wield power, but to understand the why behind it. Plagueis sees in him not just a student but a vessel for something greater, the realization of his grand design to master life and death itself. By the time Anakin is 10, he's meditating for hours, using advanced Sith techniques, manipulating objects without touching them, and even influencing small life forms with his presence alone. But more than that, Plagueis trains his mind, shaping him into a strategist, a thinker. Anakin reads ancient Sith texts, studies political systems, and begins to see the galaxy not in black and white but in shades of opportunity. What's most chilling is that he doesn't grow up twisted by hatred or consumed by vengeance. He grows up confident, calm, and focused, not because he lacks emotion, but because he's taught to master it. By the time the Jedi start sensing an unusual tremor in the Force, it's already too late. Anakin Skywalker is no mere Force-sensitive child. He's a prodigy molded by the most dangerous Sith mind the galaxy has ever known, trained not to destroy balance, but to redefine it. Anakin's training under Darth Plagueis was unlike anything the Jedi could have offered. In the hidden chambers of the Dark Lord's sanctum, far from Coruscant's watchful eyes, the boy was introduced to teachings thought to be myth, whispers of forbidden power the Jedi refused to acknowledge. Plagueis didn't just teach him to wield the Force, he taught him to master it. And central to this mastery was the manipulation of life itself. Plagueis, obsessed with the secrets of immortality, had long studied the Force's ability to influence life and death. He had spent years experimenting, bending the Force to preserve life, heal wounds that should have been fatal, and extend existence beyond its natural limits. With Anakin, his creation, the potential was limitless. Unlike Sidious, who sought control through dominance and fear, Plagueis sought to cheat the natural cycle, to halt death, and in doing so break the galaxy free from the tyranny of fate. Anakin, still full of emotion and attachment, found this knowledge intoxicating. He learned not just how to save life, but how to prevent it from fading in the first place. He felt the currents of death approaching and could push them back. With time, he could slow the aging process, mend broken minds, even influence the consciousness of others teetering between life and the void. The fear of loss that had haunted him his entire life began to vanish. Where the Jedi would say, "Let go," Plagueis showed him how to hold on. And yet, it wasn't dark to him, not in the way the Jedi described. It felt natural. Like something the Force had always wanted him to learn but was denied. The idea that death was not a certainty, that fate could be rewritten, not by prophecy but by will, changed Anakin to his core. He was no longer just a boy with power, he was a guardian of it, a protector of life, not a servant of destiny, but its master. And in that moment, he no longer feared death, because he had become the answer to it. In this alternate timeline, Anakin's view of power is transformed from the very beginning. Under Darth Plagueis, power isn't about domination, it's about understanding. It's not something to fear or suppress, but something to embrace, to study, and to wield with precision. Where the Jedi taught detachment and emotional restraint, Plagueis offered Anakin a deeper philosophy. Emotions are not weaknesses. They are sources of strength if mastered. As a teacher, Plagueis didn't push Anakin toward rage or hatred. Instead, he guided him through introspection, urging him to understand the roots of his feelings, his attachment to his mother, his desire to protect others, his fear of loss. Instead of burying those feelings, Anakin learned to channel them. The dark side wasn't a wild storm to lose yourself in, it was a controlled fire, powerful and focused. Through Plagueis' careful instruction, Anakin learned that power comes from within, from clarity of purpose, not from chaos. This version of Anakin isn't manipulated or twisted by visions of death or betrayal. He sees power as a tool to prevent suffering, not cause it. When he looks into the future, he does not see fear, he sees opportunity. He doesn't need to hide from the Jedi Council or lie to Padme. His strength comes not from secrecy, but from certainty. And in that certainty he finds peace, something the Anakin of the original timeline never truly knew. Plagueis shows him how to influence minds without destroying them, how to bend the will of others with persuasion rather than force. Anakin learns that true control doesn't mean breaking everything around you, it means shaping it gently, like water carving stone. He becomes a leader not through fear but through vision. The galaxy begins to respond to him not as a tyrant, but as a force of nature. Quiet, inevitable, and undeniable. Anakin doesn't chase power to escape death or protect what he loves. He understands it as part of the natural order, something to be respected and aligned with rather than feared. And in that understanding, he becomes unstoppable. Sidious, once the cunning apprentice of Darth Plagueis, senses a disturbance in the Force, one he cannot trace, yet feels growing stronger with each passing cycle. Unbeknownst to him, his old master has survived, working from the shadows and nurturing a new Sith prodigy in secret. But Sidious is not a man to ignore threats, especially not ones that challenge his rise to absolute power. As whispers of a powerful Force-sensitive being begin to surface, one who has never been seen by the Jedi, but whose presence echoes across the galaxy. Sidious grows increasingly paranoid. He launches secret investigations, dispatching spies and manipulating intelligence networks to uncover the source. Slowly, he begins to suspect that Plagueis might not be dead after all. When Sidious finally discovers that Anakin Skywalker is not only alive but trained in the ancient Sith arts by Plagueis himself, he is shaken to his core. The boy is no mere apprentice. He is powerful, refined, and untouched by the limitations Sidious imposed on his own acolytes. Worse yet, Anakin's connection to the Force is unlike anything the Sith Lord has ever seen. For the first time in years, Sidious is afraid. Determined to eliminate the threat, Sidious begins orchestrating a plan to either lure Anakin to his side or destroy him outright. But Plagueis, always one step ahead, anticipates this. He instructs Anakin not to confront Sidious with rage but with clarity. Their conflict becomes one not just of lightsabers and lightning, but of ideologies. Sidious, fueled by domination and control, seeks to twist the galaxy under one ruler. Anakin, guided by Plagueis' refined Sith wisdom, understands that true power lies in evolution, not fear. Their clash becomes inevitable. The Sith are divided. Sidious seeks to maintain the rule of two. Anakin and Plagueis believe in the rule of growth, a new order where the Sith do not consume themselves, but thrive beyond the shadows. The apprentice has become the enemy, and the galaxy watches as two dark titans move silently toward collision. While Anakin trained in secret under Darth Plagueis, the Jedi Order sensed disturbances in the Force, subtle ripples that echoed across the galaxy like whispers in the wind. But without any visible threat, they couldn't trace the source. Their attention remained divided between the growing tensions in the Republic and the mysterious influence clouding their visions. To them, it was just another anomaly, another ripple in an already unstable galaxy. Plagueis was no fool. He shielded Anakin from detection, masking his presence with ancient Sith techniques long lost to time. Anakin's Force signature was distorted, appearing as a mere flicker in the currents of the Force, untraceable, almost as if he didn't exist. This allowed him to move unseen, grow stronger, and observe the Jedi from the shadows. The Jedi, unaware of this growing storm, continued to uphold their doctrine, believing they were the only ones truly guiding the will of the Force. Obi-Wan never met Anakin. Qui-Gon's mission to Tatooine never occurred, and without the boy's presence, key events shifted, quietly, subtly, but critically. Wars that might have erupted early were delayed, but the cost was far greater. Anakin, trained without the Jedi's emotional restrictions, saw their ways as flawed, noble perhaps, but disconnected from reality. Plagueis allowed him to feel attachment, love, rage, not to be consumed by them but to understand them, to wield them. And in the Jedi's refusal to embrace this full spectrum, they unknowingly weakened their ability to sense what was coming. In time, Anakin began walking freely among them, cloaked in anonymity, a silent observer, a growing force. He saw their arrogance, their blind spots, their unwillingness to adapt, and though he didn't strike, his presence became a reflection of everything the Jedi failed to notice, until it was far too late. They were looking for a dark army, a new Sith Lord, a galactic threat. But they never considered the Chosen One was already among them, walking quietly in the shadow of their ignorance. Despite the dark and secretive nature of Anakin's training under Darth Plagueis, one thing remains untouched: his love for Padmé Amidala. Even though their paths don't cross in the Jedi Temple or Senate negotiations, destiny still pulls them together. Anakin, operating in the shadows of Coruscant or hidden enclaves of the galaxy, encounters Padmé during a critical mission orchestrated by Plagueis. Her strength, grace, and compassion stir something deep within him, a part of himself not ruled by power or doctrine, but by emotion. And unlike the Jedi who would have forbidden such feelings, Plagueis does not discourage Anakin's attachment. Instead, he sees it as a source of power to be refined, not rejected. As their bond deepens, Padme begins to sense that Anakin is no ordinary man. His understanding of the galaxy, his questions about justice, freedom, and the true nature of power, none of it aligns with the dogma of the Republic or the Jedi, but rather than fear it, she is drawn in. This version of Anakin is intense but controlled, loving yet strategic, and above all, willing to do anything to protect those he cares about. He's not hiding his love, he's embracing it, shaping it into strength and learning to master his fears, not be ruled by them. When Padme begins to suffer from political threats and growing tension across the galaxy, Anakin doesn't panic. He doesn't lose himself to dread like he once did in the timeline we know. Armed with the knowledge taught by Plagueis of life, death, and the mysteries in between, he takes steps to shield her from harm, not through violence but through vision. He becomes her protector from the shadows, her anchor in a turbulent galaxy. Padme, in turn, becomes his moral compass. Not a chain, but a partner. Together, they start to dream of a galaxy that can be led not through fear or blind tradition, but through balance, of heart and power, of darkness and light. And that changes everything. Anakin Skywalker, molded not by the rigid dogma of the Jedi nor the treacherous ambition of Sidious, begins to see a different path under Darth Plagueis. As his power grows and his understanding of the Force deepens, so too does his vision for the galaxy. He does not crave domination for the sake of control, nor does he seek to destroy the Jedi out of hatred. Instead, Anakin envisions a galaxy no longer divided by light and dark, but guided by a singular truth, balanced through understanding both. With Plagueis' teachings anchoring him, Anakin begins to forge something entirely new. The Sith as they once were, ruled by fear, betrayal, and conquest, are reimagined. Gone are the chains of the rule of two. In its place, Anakin establishes a new structure, a brotherhood of Force users who embrace passion without being consumed by it. They are not conquerors, but guardians from the shadows, protecting the galaxy from instability and decay. This order does not seek to overthrow the Jedi through brute force, but to render them obsolete by surpassing them in wisdom and clarity. Rather than igniting war, Anakin works quietly behind the scenes, placing leaders in positions of power, manipulating outcomes for long-term peace, not just victory. The Clone Wars in this timeline are either prevented or controlled with precision, serving as tools to eliminate chaos without needless bloodshed. The Senate is restructured through influence rather than dictatorship. There is no Death Star, no mass extermination, only silent shifts of power designed to stabilize a fractured galaxy, and through it all, Anakin remains at the center, not as a tyrant, but as a philosopher-warrior. His order, though rooted in Sith origin, becomes something beyond ancient labels. He leads a movement that does not ask others to choose between light and dark, but to transcend both. This is not the fall of the Jedi. This is their quiet, inevitable replacement. Balance in the Force. Something the Jedi clung to with blind conviction, and something the Sith sought to bend to their will. But under Darth Plagueis' secret tutelage, Anakin came to understand balance as something far more nuanced than either side could comprehend. It wasn't about eliminating darkness or suppressing light. It was about embracing the full spectrum of the Force and using it wisely. With this unique perspective, Anakin became a Force wielder unlike any other, untethered from the rigid codes of Jedi restraint and the destructive hunger of traditional Sith ideology. Rather than being torn apart by conflicting loyalties, Anakin found peace in contradiction. He didn't reject love, he honored it. He didn't fear anger, he mastered it. Emotions became tools, not threats. Where the Jedi failed to nurture his humanity and where Sidious sought to exploit it, Plagueis taught Anakin to channel it. And in doing so, Anakin matured into a being of true balance, one who could walk the darkness without falling into it, and shine with light without being blinded by it. Through this path, the galaxy changed. Anakin didn't wage war in Palpatine's name. He dismantled the old Sith structure, rejected the rule of two, and began sowing a new vision, one where the Force was not divided into camps but understood as a singular flowing current of life. Force users were no longer judged by allegiance but by how they used their power. This transformation didn't bring peace overnight. There were those who feared him, on both sides. The Jedi Council saw a threat, the remnants of the Sith saw a heretic. But Anakin remained unmoved, guided not by dogma but by clarity. He became not a tyrant, not a savior, but something else entirely, an architect of a new age, one where the Force finally flowed in harmony through the will of a being who understood both its fury and its mercy. And that is how Anakin Skywalker brought balance to the Force, not through destruction, but through evolution.